Welcome to Workday Benefits Passive Events. In this session, we'll explore how passive events work in Workday Benefits. Passive events identify employees or their dependents who are either gaining or losing their benefit plan eligibility due to the passage of time. The passive event feature in Workday sifts through a population to identify the individuals that meet specific rule logic. For example, when a dependent reaches age 26 and they aren't a person with a disability, they're no longer eligible for healthcare coverage under their parent or guardian's plans. Or when employees reach the age of 65, they become eligible for retirement and for 401k or 403 catch-up plans. Consider passive events like milestones. Your benefits administrators are responsible for setting up and configuring the different passive events that suit your organization's milestones. Milestones tend to only happen once. For example, a person only turns 26 once in their lifetime. So most people process these benefit events one time by default. Passive events require some setup. Additionally, a person or security group doesn't manually initiate passive events. Instead, passive events initiate automatically. When a passive event initiates, the system can automatically enroll or remove someone from benefits. It can also route the event as a My Tasks action, which gives the employee the option to enroll in a benefit. These functions depend on your setup requirements. For each passive event or milestone in Workday, you'll have a passive event rule. This rule has several noteworthy elements. First, the passive event rule links to the benefit event type. The benefit event type informs the Workday system what plans are eligible for election changes, whether or not employees can enter any elections, whether or not the event should route to the benefits partner to enter the election changes, and whether the employee should automatically default into the coverage. Benefit eligibility rules control who gains or loses eligibility. These rules define what the passive event should identify. For example, a child who just turned 26 and isn't a person with a disability. The benefit group links to the passive event rule as well. The groups identify the worker populations that the passive event changes will impact. You can also choose to select or clear the rerunnable checkbox. This checkbox is cleared by default because passive events typically cater to milestones that only occur once. However, it's possible to rerun a passive event for a worker if needed. An example of why you may want to select the checkbox is if employees receive a reward every year on the anniversary of their hire date. In this case, you do want the passive event to rerun, since the anniversary will occur each year as opposed to only one time in the employee's career. Additionally, you can schedule passive events. This determines how often the passive event runs to ensure timely processing rather than manual processing. You can also set up alerts to notify the employee before and when the passive event processes. If children are rolling off coverage, you'll want to notify the parents with a reminder. There are many options for how far in advance that you can send notifications, such as a month before, a week before, or both. Next, let's talk about how this works by reviewing an employee's current benefit elections and dependents. In this example, James has multiple dependents and his medical, dental, and vision coverage display as employee plus family. Holly is his spouse. For a passive event that identifies a child whose current age is 26 or older, there's no impact to Holly's coverage. James's daughter Nicole, although over age 26, is a person with a disability. In the United States, the passive event won't impact her coverage. This is part of the eligibility rule logic. James's son Tyler isn't receiving any benefits, but his other son William is. However, because William is over the age of 26 and isn't a person with a disability, there will be a direct impact to his coverage after the passive event runs. William is no longer eligible for healthcare coverage under his parent. So once the passive event process completes, Workday removes him from coverage. When the event reruns again on its schedule, Workday won't include William a second time. Though your benefits administrator is responsible for managing and processing passive events, as the benefits partner, you'll likely receive questions and need to support employees, especially if a passive event routes as a My Tasks action. For a child that reaches the age limit milestone, the task will likely route to a benefits partner. But if an event routes to an employee, they may have questions about why they received the task. With the right security permissions, you or your administrator can check the process monitor to investigate passive events that occur on a scheduled basis. Now let's talk a bit more about how COBRA functions in the system. There are 3 ways to process COBRA in Workday. Fully automated, COBRA events generate automatically with no opportunity for review. Semi-automated, COBRA events generate automatically with an opportunity to review the fields that populate. Semi-automated processing routes and tasks to the benefits partner to review and submit. Or manual. You can manually create, update, and remove COBRA events as needed. This option is helpful in situations where there are exceptions to the rule or when something occurs but doesn't trigger COBRA. Now that you're more familiar with passive events, we'll demonstrate how to view a passive event rule and schedule a passive event rule to run. Meet Maria Cardoza, a benefits partner for Global Modern Services. Maria will review a passive event rule that will process an event for children who reach 26 years of age and aren't eligible for coverage through their parent or guardian. Then, after the passive event runs, we'll review the benefit events status report to review the completed event. Now, Kai will demonstrate Maria reviewing the passive event.
I'll begin as Maria Cardoza and navigate to the View Passive Event Rule report. I'll demonstrate how Workday processes a passive event for children who reach 26 years of age and aren't eligible for coverage through their parent or guardian. So, in the Passive Event Rule field, I'll select Child Reaches Age Limit. As I review this report, notice a few key details. First, this passive event rule maps to the Child Reaches Age Limit benefit event type. By selecting the benefit event type's related actions, I can preview information including the enrollment offering types, days to enroll, and coordination of event details. The passive event rule also maps to a benefit eligibility rule. Recall that this rule defines who's gaining or losing eligibility for coverage. In this example, Workday identifies only a child over the age of 26 who isn't a person who has a disability, although I can also select the object's related actions I want for this demonstration. Next, notice which benefit groups the passive event segments. In other words, the parents or guardians of children over the age of 26 who aren't people with disabilities will pick up when this passive event runs. In this example, only active employees in the Green Planet Solutions Company or in the U.S. earning hourly or salary compensation have potential impacts from this passive event. The next step in the process is for the benefits administrator to schedule the passive event to run. Moving ahead, the benefits administrator has already scheduled and run the passive event to completion. Now, I'll review the completed event. Signed in as Maria, I've navigated to the benefit events status report. I'll locate the event for James Brooks. James has a child that is over 26 years of age and will pull into the passive event process, requiring a change of benefits. From here, I can select the Change Benefit Elections button to update James's benefits.
In this session, we've reviewed and demonstrated how passive events function in Workday Benefits. Thank you for taking the time to learn with Workday.